Do you remember before VAR, when every refereeing decision was a major talking point? When "I guess we'll never really know" was a reasonable refrain? Well, of course you do, because while VAR promised an end to the unknown, in reality, it magnified it. Now, to give VAR its credit, we may never have another mistake as egregious as Thierry Henry's handball or Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain being mistaken for Kieran Gibbs. But the truth is that for all its successes, VAR illuminates complex problems without providing proper answers. It highlights a terminal conflict between two now diverging concepts: observation and application. And this conflict, now at the heart of the sport, threatens to change the way the game is played forever. VAR's introduction to the Premier League was unavoidable. The history of the sport is littered with refereeing errors, and by 2019, supporters were clamouring for a solution. But why? Well, because most football leagues operate in pyramid structures. They use promotion and relegation as tools of social mobility, the idea being that a team at the bottom of the pyramid could theoretically reach the top. Now, for human beings, that's a very engaging narrative, but it's based on the fundamentals of fair play and even playing fields. And unfortunately, refereeing errors can challenge those tenets. Now, the driving factor, of course, is that the technology to monitor some of these errors is readily available. But as Dr. Ian Malcolm once presciently said, they were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Of course, technology isn't all bad, but there are important distinctions to make. Because prior to the introduction of VAR, the Premier League already utilised goal line technology. On the 18th of January 2014, Manchester City's Edin Dzeko became its first beneficiary. His goal that day against Cardiff City was the league's first awarded by the use of technology. In 2020, Sheffield United were denied a goal against Aston Villa due to a glitch in the Hawkeye system, but this remains the only black mark on an otherwise impeccable record. Goal line technology is clearly a success, but its success is not the technology, it's the application. It's a goal or it isn't. There's no margin for error, no middle ground, no uncertainty. Whether or not a ball has crossed a line is the perfect use case for technological assistance because there is no gap between the observation of that event and the ability to apply the correct outcome. VAR, however, is utilised to observe a broader range of events. These incidences are categorised as goals, penalty decisions, direct red card incidents, or mistaken identity. And it's only to be used for clear and obvious errors or serious missed incidents. So you're either Kieran Gibbs or you're not, and that's fine. But in the other three categories, things are not quite as simple. Take, for example, an incident in a game between Chelsea and Manchester United in February 2021. Callum Hudson-Odoi and Mason Greenwood collide in Chelsea's penalty area, and the event is reviewed to check for a possible handball. Now, at first it appeared as if it was Greenwood who had handled the ball, so much so that surrounding Chelsea players loudly appealed for a free kick. Yet upon review it was shown that it was actually Hudson-Odoi's hand that made contact, and yet no penalty was awarded. So let's go through this process. Now, this can fairly be described as a serious missed incident, a trigger for the video assistant referee to complete a check. However, unlike our goal or no goal or Gibbs or not Gibbs incidents, this isn't clear-cut, thereby creating a gap between observation and application. And to bridge this gap, we need to interpret, and this is where the messy human errors find their way back into the system. You see, VAR isn't a problem, it simply illuminates the problem of applying the rules. And here are the rules relating to handball offences. The truth is that there simply cannot be a conclusive answer because the rule requires a degree of interpretation. What is deliberate? To what degree of accuracy can you determine the boundary of the arm? To what extent does an arm make the body unnaturally bigger? The answer is individual to the individual providing the answer, because it cannot not be. So we were interpreting before VAR, and we are interpreting now. And it's inarguable that the technology allows us a greater chance of applying the correct outcome in scenarios where there is such a thing as a correct outcome, but that's not really the problem. The problem is that the rules of the game are being changed to accommodate this greater observational access. At the beginning of the 2019-20 season, IFAB amended the handball rule. The aim was to make handball incidents easier to interpret, or in our language, to shorten the gap between observation and application. Across Europe, these adjustments led to a significant rise in the number of penalties awarded for handball fouls. And at the beginning of the 2020-21 season, FIFA, in charge of the implementation of VAR, insisted that the Premier League follow suit and apply the stricter interpretation. This consequently led to a similar rise in handball penalties awarded and has been a source of much consternation with supporters, players and managers. The reaction to which has been the apparent easing of that strict interpretation, leading us full circle back to Hudson-Odoi, whose handling of the ball very likely would have resulted in a penalty had it happened just a few months earlier. And herein lies the danger. The rules are being changed in order to improve the efficiency of VAR. If interpretation plays too much of a role, in a way that now millions of people see on televisions every weekend, then the instinct is to amend the rules to be increasingly black and white and to apply a definitive lens to areas of the game which were always intended to be subjective.